This is Justin.
And this is Haley, and you're listening to The Price of Avocado Toast.
We're a married millennial couple wanting to normalize conversations about money. We want to hear about your highs and your lows,
The do's and the don'ts on your path towards financial freedom. Hi Toasties, welcome to The Price of Avocado Toast.
Whether you're a first-time listener or you've been following us from the start of this thing, we're so glad to have this conversation with you today.
Okay, today is the third and final episode of our MLM, multi-level marketing, network marketing, direct sales. There's too many ways to say this. Mini-series.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that we did this. We presented both sides, spoke to people on both ends of the spectrum, and now we get to kind of debrief and talk about how we view network marketing now after both of our conversations that we had with Chelsea and with Jen.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not just like those are the only two conversations we had. Obviously, we've had conversations in the past with people on both sides, but we also had a lot of people reach out to talk throughout the whole series and just kind of share their ideas and stuff. So it's been really really good conversation piece. It's been a really good topic to explore more and talk about. So I think it was a win overall.
So I did a little box on my Instagram today asking what people wanted us to talk about when we recorded this. Someone said, would you ever buy from an MLM? I'm a sucker for the candle ladies. And I just want to start with this because I actually made a Post-it that I threw away, so I had to rewrite it. I think you're going to lull at this. These are the ones that I have bought from.
Okay.
So I have bought shakes from Herbalife.
Okay.
For like a good year, I did that.
Wow.
I bought stomach wraps from It Works because society said I was fat. I did that for a while. I bought Shakeology shakes from Beachbody for a while. I have done two different essential oil companies, doTERRA and Young Living. And then growing up, so those are all the ones that I've purchased from.
Okay.
Do any of those surprise you?
The stomach band one is kind of goofy.
When I was thinking of that, I was like, Justin's going to think that's really weird. And then growing up, my mom did not sell these, but she, I think, intended to. She bought a bunch of inventory for Mary Kay, just like Chelsea did, and I think she did plan to sell it, but then she just sat on it, and we used it for years.
Really?
So in high school, I used Mary Kay makeup and face stuff for years because my mom just always had it.
Wow.
And then Melaleuca is kind of like Amway, where they have a bunch of stuff. They have everything you can imagine for your house, but it's rebranded for their company. We also had Melaleuca everything in our house. And I need to talk to my mom about this. I don't know if she bought all of that with the intention to sell it because she definitely didn't do that. But we had stuff for years. So
interesting.
The answer to the question, Christina, yes, I would. I have bought from an MLM, several actually, now that I sat down and thought about it.
And I know that people are probably really sitting on the edge of their seats to hear about my experience purchasing from MLMs, and I am, it's unfortunate, but I will share I have not purchased from MLMs.
Never?
I've never purchased from an MLM.
Never ever?
Nope.
Wow.
Never did Herbalife. That was always the one we made fun of. You know, it's like number one rule about Herbalife is always talk about Herbalife. That was always the one we made fun of when I was working at Applebee's. Because it was just like, gosh, guys, like you're coming to work and you're pitching me on your product. Like, just go to section 3 and serve tables, dang it.
Now that I'm looking back at these, 3 of my 5 that I've bought things from are USA diet culture, which is gross. Now that I'm 29 looking at that, I can't believe I spent money on those things. There's a lot of toxicity within these companies. However, it's said and done. I was in my early 20s. I was young. I actually had no money. And I was never a coach or a person that sold things. I just always bought product. And it didn't work. Shocker. But yeah, when we started this whole mini series, I went in with an open mind because I've never been super anti network marketing because I have participated at some level, just buying products from certain companies. So I felt like I can't totally shit on the idea of network marketing when I have bought things from companies. In fact, a couple months ago, I just bought some oils for my diffuser just because I like the way that they smell.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm at with all of this. I feel like I'm really in the middle. I do see the scammy stuff. I see a bunch of people succeeding, and then I see people like me, which I think is the large majority of people who are like, hey, I like a good product, whether it is whatever you think it is. Herbalife, I definitely wouldn't say that was a good product. But Young Living essential oils, if that's what you find a good product and you want to buy it, then you go get it. Like Roden and Fields, for example. They're also a network marketing company. They have a really good reputation, and they have what people would say is high quality products. So that's where I stand with all of this. Does any of this surprise you?
No, it's not surprising. It's kind of like we talked about with with Jen. Like I've just never been marketed to.
Yeah, that's true.
Other than Amway, I haven't been marketed to be an ambassador or a coach. I haven't been marketed to purchase product. So it's totally different for me. Like I have been able to kind of separate myself from it and look at it much more of like what? Oh, I wouldn't do that, because I don't enjoy the product. If I was enjoying the product, I might be like, well, it's not, such a bad culture. Or I might feel a little bit differently about it. But because I'm not an active participant in it, it's much easier for me to sit on the sideline and kind of point the finger at it.
And now that I have a better idea of the different network marketing companies, most of them do target women.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do see some men in Beachbody drinking Shakeologies, but there's not very many of them. And then I think of LuLaRoe leggings are for women. All of these things are for ladies. I mean, it's very interesting because I can't think of one of these that's marketed towards men. People could argue Herbalife was, but all of the people I knew that did Herbalife were women.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know any men?
Yeah, actually, an employee at Applebee's with me. He was the one who was on Herbalife, and he would, kind of bring it up and mention it and stuff. And he was a bigger dude, kind of like my size. So I was like, oh, cool. Like, but I never did it.
You never got sucked in?
No, I was like, sorry, man. I'm good. Thanks, though.
So. Someone else asked us, if the initial approach was famously less sketch, would we be more accepting as a whole? So what do you think about that? Like if it didn't have such a bad reputation.
I think maybe I might, I just, even if the reputation is great, even if it's all totally fine, for me personally, there's an aspect of like the continual sales pitch that just feels disingenuous. And I think, we had a really good interview this week with Travis Shelton from Meaning Over Money. And we were kind of talking with him, and he was like, you guys are authentic and you're genuine. And that's who we are as human beings, is like we try to be authentic and genuinely ourselves in the way that we're thinking and feeling and acting. And so when it feels as though relationships are not that way, it's uncomfortable. And so I think that even if the initial pitch isn't like that, I would still feel like that, later on down the road in this moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think there's been a lot of argument that, like, well, we buy things from people on Instagram and really any influencers. So what's the difference between buying from an influencer versus buying from, someone who's selling Monet hair products? And there's a lot that goes into that. But the way that I'm looking at it is the influencers get the money. They get a little cut percentage from the big company. They're not building a bunch of people below them.
Yeah.
They're just saying, hey, I like this product. I'm going to push it on my Instagram. And if people buy it using my affiliate link, then I'll get a little cut. It's just like running ads.
Mm-hmm.
And so I view that much differently. Not everyone will agree with that, but that's totally cool. But yeah.
I like to think too, like, what happens if I stop buying from you? Like, how strained is our relationship? How uncomfortable is that for you? How uncomfortable is that for me to have that conversation with you? Like, hey, I don't want to purchase this anymore. Maybe it's not in my budget or for whatever reason, right? Like, how is our relationship then strained? If you can compartmentalize that and be like, no, you're still my friend even if you don't purchase this product, well, then maybe it was genuine. But if you're like, no, that's totally fine, and you don't talk to me again for a while, like, okay, well, obviously I know where you leaned.
I just last week spoke to someone who is technically a Beachbody coach, She's not very active right now, and she's terrified to leave, to completely quit her coaching status because she keeps seeing other people get like canceled.
Really?
They leave coaching, and then all of their quote unquote friends just black them out, and they want nothing to do with them.
That is so toxic.
And so, yeah, she doesn't want that to happen to her, and she doesn't. So now she's in a situation where she sees the fake friendships, but she feels stuck, like knowing that if I leave, I'm gonna lose all of this, and it's just, you build these relationships with people.
That's really unfortunate.
She doesn't want to leave.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate.
All right. On the flip side, someone was. I don't even want to say they were defending network marketing in their messages, because they were saying, the debt-free community was built to help people get ahead, to help people get out of debt. So why does it matter how they get their money? If they're going to have a side hustle, get some money working at Applebee's, or if they're going to get some money selling essential oils, does it really matter as long as it's moving them forward? So what do you think about that?
I think that's interesting, and I think that there's definitely weight in that question. I think that there's value in that question. But again, it comes down to, for me, like, just morally and ethically, it just feels weird to me. It feels weird to constantly be, like, worried about the next pitch. And this is a conversation you and I have had even through your financial coaching business, that, like, hey, like, there's some real serious ethical dilemmas that go into this, and there's a particular way that you want to approach marketing your business and not reaching this point where it feels like scummy to talk to people maybe who are low income or working their way out of debt, right? Like, those are very serious conversations that you and I have had, and it feels like every single step of the way we lead with our hearts and try and have this like very strong ethical and moral balance to make sure that we still feel good about it. And so I just wonder, like, again, like, I get that getting the money any way you can or getting out of debt however you need to is important. But at some point that trade-off just isn't worth it to me. So, like, potentially sacrifice those relationships to potentially leverage relationships that people are maybe trusting or building with me. It just feels uncomfortable.
I agree. And kind of going on leveraging relationships, I just want to say that after all of this, I do have a strong opinion that I have to state on our podcast, because some people might be listening and they're like, oof, that's me. What I can't stand, the thing that turns me off the most about people that get sucked into network marketing is all of a sudden I was their friend on social media. I followed them raising their kids and doing all these things, and then all of a sudden all they care about and all they post is whatever they're trying to sell. And then it becomes like, I can't even engage with you anymore because I don't care about what you're selling. But I don't. It's just really weird. It's a very strange thing, even though they're not directly like pitching at me and trying to sell at me, or maybe they are. I don't know. It feels almost the same as if someone were to slide in my DMs and say, "Hey girl, I'm looking for 5 new boss babes to build my team this month. Are you in?" It's just like, why am I even here? That I found myself unfriending or muting people on Instagram that turn into accounts like that, because I don't want that. I don't want to be around it. It feels very pushy and slimy. And Jen actually said this during our interview, but it got edited out. Like when you're in the mall and the people are trying to straighten your hair and you just want to avoid them at all costs because it's super awkward. So you just like walk away and dodge the bullet. That's how I feel when people are interacting with me like that.
We should apologize. I unfortunately did cut.
It was you.
I cut a part of Jen's episode. I was so bummed. I accidentally cut where she mentioned her salary. I guess we can share that because she, kind of shared it with us. It's not into 6 figures, but she was making into the $40,000 range.
Yeah, it was predicted that 2021 was going to be around $50,000.
Yeah, which is great money for her family.
Yeah, and I'm bummed that got cut out on accident, because that was a huge part of the conversation that I think was important in that episode, because it's not like this person is just making a little bit of money. I mean, she essentially replaced her salary.
Yeah.
And is making really good money able to do this at home. So talking to someone like that and seeing the success and the real numbers made me really question some of my beliefs about network marketing. I'm still not a fan, but I'm definitely looking at it differently.
But it goes back to kind of what you're saying before I mentioned Jen Salve of like, the message that women get of like, hey girl, like I'm looking for 5 boss babes, right? Like we say that and we like, kind of make a joke sound out of it, but like how many people have gotten that Instagram DM or that like Facebook message that sounds exactly like that? Like, hey girl, I hope you're doing well. By the way, like this is what I'm up to and this is what you should do with it. And it's like, where have you been for the last 5 years of my life where I was raising my babies or getting married or doing, it's so disingenuous. It's so inauthentic. And that's, I think, what most people's problem is. If you're actively building a relationship, you're actively investing and pouring into somebody, then I could see it working. But until then, until those predatory practices are stopped, it's going to continue to get a bad rep.
Well, and that's what Jen said. She said that it's all about building relationships. And if you don't do that, then it is just the slimy feeling of selling something and truly leveraging the relationships with your friends and family, which goes back to the question that someone asked, if this approach, the initial approach wasn't so sketchy, would people be more into this? And I think yes, because that is a huge turnoff for people.
Yeah.
Because it's like, who are you? Why are you in my Facebook messages and I haven't seen you in 10 years?
Yeah. Again,
to sell me something.
I just kind of lean, though, towards the idea that, like, a month from then, couple months from then, a year from then, it's going to flip. It's going to turn back into the, uncomfortable conversations of, like, overhead, ambassador and underneath ambassador. And then how are you going to react when I'm not selling as much product? Or how are you going to react when things get tight for me? What's that relationship going to look like? How strained is it going to be? Because I think it always comes around to that. I think there's no way that it doesn't redirect towards that direction.
Yeah, that's true. I was talking to someone today who is a business owner, and they said that they refuse to employ people they know because they don't want to have that weirdness when if the person sucks at their job, they have to fire them.
Yeah.
Or anything getting weird where they're like, okay, all of a sudden now our relationship is
super
never going to be
strained.
the same.
Yeah. Good for them for sticking to that idea because that's probably hard.
Oh, yeah. Especially when people usually want to work with your friends. They want to be around you. It seems like it'd be a fun environment, but could also be a bad idea.
And there's a reason people say don't ever work with family or friends. You know, don't ever go into a business partnership with family and friends. One of the funny quotes, I'll give Dave Ramsey his credit. This was one of his quotes that I do think is kind of funny. He says, the only ship that doesn't float is a partnership. And I just think that's funny. He'd always lay into people talking about like wanting to go in business with their family and friends. And that's because more often than not, those relationships do get strained. More often than not, that causes some type of tension that can be uncomfortable for one party or another.
Well, that's not to say always, but...
Of course. There's no absolutes in life.
Yeah. There was one time I hired someone to work at the gym that I worked at, and she'd worked at another pool that I worked at. So this is a big web. So I took her from the pool, hired her at the gym, and I had to fire her. It was so awkward.
Yeah.
Because I knew her for a few years, and then I had to fire her, and it was like, okay, sorry I brought you over here. Now you're no longer welcome. It was very awkward.
And that's not even somebody that you're close friends with.
No. That was just someone that I knew, and my heart felt bad for having to fire them.
Like, imagine if that was a really close friend or your, brother.
Yeah. Ouch.
Yeah, if my brother's listening to this, I want him to know I'd fire him.
You would?
I'd fire him. If I had to. I love him, but my wife and kids got to eat first, Bubba. Make it work. I love you, Jared.
So, overall... Are you saying that network marketing is not your jam?
Yeah, I don't think network marketing is my jam. I mean, for me personally, I'm obviously not going to do it. If there's a product that I find that's value, of course I'll buy it, like if it's valuable to me. If somebody can come up with like a really cool football MLM, then they might make some money off of me. But until then, it's not quite for me. I won't be in it. I won't encourage friends to get into it. I really yeah, it's not quite for me.
Not your cup of tea?
Not my cup of tea.
So when I come home and I'm like, oh, Justin, I got this great opportunity. I'm going to sell wine glasses for a living. I'm just going to go all in and build this team. What's your response?
My response is like, what happened throughout the day with your own personal business that is so in the toilet that you're like, this is my next best option? You have a master's degree in teaching. Why were you like, yeah, this is it? I mean, I shouldn't say that though, because like Jen mentioned, she's able to be home with her family, and that's really great, and that's providing her a lot of opportunity. And there's people out there that are getting to enjoy that, and I'm excited for them and good for them. I'll always come back around to this idea of kind of how you and I feel about money and wealth in general. Like, there is plenty of money and wealth for all of us to be successful.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I want every single human being that I know and come in contact with to live abundantly and to have what they need and to have enough to make them happy. And there's enough money around to do that. And so I want everybody like that to win. I want them to be successful. Now, I might not be actively purchasing that product to help them be successful, but it doesn't mean I'm not rooting for them. I'll still root for them. I'll still hope that they can be successful. It's just not going to be something I'm partaking in.
Yeah, there's this girl that I used to work with that is now very, very high up with Monet. And although I'm not buying product from her and I don't really want to have much to do with it, it's really cool watching it. I don't know the behind the scenes. I don't know who's underneath her. I don't know her upline, downline, all of that. I don't know who's getting screwed over in the process or if that's totally not happening.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people who can really make this successful. But the unfortunate reality is, I don't even know the stat, but it's some ridiculous amount of people. I'm going to look it up. Pause for a second.
Well, while you're looking it up, I'll talk that I think that it's all it takes is one bad experience to put some salt in the idea of network marketing for you, right? Like, we had a terrible Amway experience.
It's 99%.
A fail rate. Fail rate or not.
Lose money.
Yeah, lose
99% of MLM sellers actually lose money, and this was published on Vox.com in 2018.
Yeah, so a reputable site. Yeah, I just, yeah, again, I think the amount of people that have a bad experience brings some light into the fact that there's weight to that. If so many people have had a negative experience, there's probably a reason for that.
Right.
That's just me.
Just like the LuLaRoe, not Lulu. Lululemon and LuLaRoe are two totally different boats.
I've always wondered if they were connected.
Really?
Yeah, until you explained.
Most definitely not.
Until you explained the documentary, then I was like, well, it's definitely not connected.
Definitely not. In fact, wherever my Lululemon leggings are, I miss them.
Yeah.
That was my punishment for buying such expensive leggings, was the fact that they disappeared on me.
Yeah.
I mean, what the heck was that about? But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think I agree with you. It's not my cup of tea. It never was my cup of tea, but even after hearing both sides, it's still not my cup of tea, but I do have a little bit more of an open mind to why people do this.
For sure.
After speaking to Jen, I feel like I can see why she does it. I can see that it doesn't always have to be a slimy experience.
Yeah.
And not all network marketing companies are created the same.
This is true. While we have some extra time in the podcast here, can I just ask you a few questions?
Oh, no. Sure.
Okay, so the first one is just how are things going with your coaching clients? I rarely get to see you because I'm working all day and then I go to football and I come home and it's like dinner and put the girls down for bed and then it gets late. So I feel like I just get like glimpses of things and like brief talks, but I just haven't really gotten to like ask you recently how things are going. So like how has it been on a scale of 1 to 10? How are things going?
It's going really well. And I'm about to finish my last month with my beta clients. I've got 15 clients total, all across the nation, mostly on the East Coast. they're all across like 10 states, which is the craziest thing. Like, I never would have had the opportunity to connect with these people if it wasn't for this podcast and Instagram as a platform.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I'd say it's like an 8 out of 10. But it's going really well. My clients are seeing some really great success, and I honestly have never felt more fulfilled with a job. And I loved teaching.
Yeah.
So this is really a cool thing that I'm doing.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, I've always thought that you're, super cool cheerleader for me. So it's cool to see other people have that success and you like root them on and walk them through it and stuff. And so I'm glad it's going well. Again, I just don't get to talk to you about it much. I get little glimpses of like, hey, I have to go meet with a client or something like that, but I don't really get the full story. And I mean, there's one of your clients is a rock star listener of ours who like will even send me stuff on TikTok, and she's, I'm sure, listening and just knows that she's amazing and incredible. So I was glad that I got to sneak onto your call with her the other day and just like wave and say hi. Yeah. But beyond that, like I really don't like know everything that's going on. So I'm glad that it's going well.
Yeah, you're not gonna know either because I have to have my confidentiality agreements with people, but I can share such cool wins, which is so fun to be able to be like, oh my God, this client I just met with is paying off all this money, or they finally decided to do this, or it's just cool.
Yeah, it's exciting for sure. The second thing I want to ask you is what's coming up on the deck or on our slate for Price of Avocado Toast? What's coming up? What can our listeners look forward to?
Oh my gosh, we have so many things. I am booked.
I know, like I'm trying to keep track of it, like.
Yeah, you're
you
never
kind of just like, hey, like we have this interview, and I kind of just show up and do it. But you seem like you have everything like laid out.
Yeah, we have 8 interviews in October.
Yeah, that's a decent little chunk.
So far we've interviewed with the former budget teacher David, who is actually our new financial advisor. And
shout out David.
I am so excited for that.
Love him. He's amazing.
And then last night we just interviewed with Travis Shelton from the Meaning Over Money podcast, and that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, amazing. We've just had some killer interviews. And then we interviewed with Kate from Debt Free Journey 5, and that was also phenomenal. So I'm just really excited for all of these. I don't know. You were there for the interviews. It was just awesomeness.
Yeah, it was just awesome. I really liked everybody's vulnerability in the conversations. Their conversational styles really fit well with us. I'm just so excited for the interviews to drop. And it's nice when we kind of schedule a bunch of these interviews because we meet all these awesome people and then we space them out over time and all of our listeners get to meet all of these awesome people over, the course of a couple months. So it's really exciting. It looks like our fall and winter season is going to be really fun and really exciting.
Really, really cool. And we have some more information to share with you guys about us going back into using credit cards and travel hacking and me getting denied for a credit card and all sorts of stuff that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
I also have a whole entire story that I don't know how I have left out of our story that I want to share with you guys about how I went through a debt consolidation process. Mm-hmm. I also blew through a small inheritance, so we're going to go into those stories. We're going to retell our story because that was our very first episode, and I don't even want to listen back because it probably was so janky.
I refuse to. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of The Price of Avocado Toast. As always, we are so thankful to have had this conversation with you and so grateful to be part of this community. Happy budgeting.
You've got this, Toasties.
Thanks for listening to The Price of Avocado Toast. If you vibed with this episode, share it with a friend that you're comfortable having money talks with. And if you don't mind, we'd love if you could rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
If you're in need of my support as a financial coach, message me on Instagram. I'd love to help in any way that I can. Until next time.